I have now reached end of round here, and I'm ready to start with the bind off. And the bind off, the Italian bind off, often starts with 2 rounds of double knitting. So you work 2 rounds, but it's only knitted once. And why do you do that? Well, the story I heard was that you kind of resemble industrial knitting, machine knitting, and you do these rounds to make the edge or the border here more robust. So let's start. And we start with the knit stitch here, and in the first round we knit the stitch. I will just have my stitch marker back here, or end of row marker. So I knit the first stitch, and then I place the yarn in front of the needle so that I slip the stitch purlwise and leave the strand be here. I knit one, I slip the stitch purlwise and leave the strand. And now the trick is to do this not too tight and not too loose, because if you get it too loose, it will kind of be bulky, and if you make it too tight, you may end up having a very tight neckband to go over your head. I don't think this will be the case in this design. However, if you haven't done it before, maybe it takes a bit of practice. It did to me, at least. But I will just work until end of round, and we will do the second double knitting setup round. This was the first round, and on the way I kind of do like this to make sure that when you stretch the neckband, there is enough yarn here in the double knitting. So double knitting setup round number 2. I slipped the marker. So this time we slip the knit stitch, and again we do it purlwise, but this time with the yarn in the back, and then we purl the stitch that we slipped the last time. We slip the knit stitch purlwise with the yarn in the back, and purl, slip and purl, slip and purl, slip and purl. And this is how it goes. So we will meet up again when I've done this round. I'm now back here at end of round, and the 2 setup rounds with double knitting is done. And let's just count, because I was to knit 8 rounds before I started the double knitting, and this is the first one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you can see this last round here seems as if we have only done 1 round, because we slipped every other stitch. So we are good to go. And if you think that this seems very small, it does, but when we block the sweater, it is just fine. And of course I have also calculated the width of this neckband when you stretch it, and compared it to head sizes in every size, so there should be no problem fitting this one. Before we do the actual bind off with the darning needle, we have to make sure to get enough yarn to do it. So I just stretch it a bit so that we can see the purl stitches here, and then I wind the yarn around here, around the wire, and I do it approximately 2.5 times. Take 3 if you're in doubt. but 2.5 should be enough. And then we cut the yarn, and I'm ready to start the actual bind off. Let me just catch those stitches first and we will get started. I use a bent needle like this. I find it easier when doing this bind off. When I first learned to do the Italian bind off, I always found that securing the first 2 stitches before going in the round was the most tricky part. But actually you do the first 2 stitches exactly like the rest, so you have to sew the stitches 2 times to make this nice rounding here of the Italian bind off. Let's look at the one I did. So it's kind of like the stitches are seamless, they go around the edge like this. It is very nice and very stretchy, and it can stretch very far and then go back to original shape. That's the charm about this bind off, particularly with a very elastic woolen yarn. So we sew these stitches twice, and when we do the knit stitches, the first time we pick the knit stitches is always purlwise. So remember, it's always the opposite of the stitch when doing it the first time. So knit stitches, they are sewn purlwise. So that's what we do here, and at start we have quite a long strand. And then we have to go around the stitch and take the needle and bring it back in between the knit stitch and the purl stitch. And take care not to be caught here. And so that it will be nice when we have to connect here, make sure that it is not too loose here. So I just tighten a bit. And then when you do the purl stitch, it's knitwise. So you pull the needle through here onto the back side. And now you are ready to go to do the actual bind off. And when you lift the stitches off, you do it as the stitch kind of prescribes. So you lift off the stitch knitwise, and then you have to secure the next knit stitch, and you do it purlwise. So you always do this in pairs, the knit stitches and the purl stitches. So now we did the knit stitch, and look, we can already now see here the seamless going around stitch. So now we have to lift this one off the needle, and we do it like the stitch prescribes. So it is purlwise, and then we have to sew the other purl here for the first time. So we go in from the back between the knit and the purl stitch, and then we go knitwise back. So we are ready to start a new round the same way. We lift it off knitwise and sew it the first time purlwise. And the purl stitch is lifted off purlwise, but knitted or sewn the first time knitwise. So we just have to pull it through here and then in the loop here. That was the next pair. Let's do a couple more. we lift off the stitch knitwise and secure it the first time purlwise. Now we lift up the purl stitch purlwise, pull the needle between the knit and the purl stitch, and when you get experienced, you just do like this in the same go, just to show you that you will soon get the hang of it. And again, it's practice, that you don't pull too tight and not too loose, because you will easily see it, because then the stitches get a bit skewed. So here now they go around like this. Let me take a couple more. Knitwise, purlwise, purlwise, lift up, knitwise, in between and in the stitch here. You can always do like this and see if you're happy. If you do it too loosely, it will kind of look wavy and bulky here. So yeah, it's a balance. I have now reached the end of row here, and I only have 2 stitches left. So I will show you how I make the closure here and try to make it as jogless as possible. So I do as I usually do. Because I have knitted this one, so I just lift it off knitwise, and I will catch this stitch purlwise, the first leg of the first stitch we made. Let's have a closer look. I think I caught it now. Make sure not to. Yeah, there it is, like this. So it's just like usual, it's just that we actually have been through this stitch twice already. And then we do the purl, we lift it up purlwise, and then I catch the purl stitch here, but just on the other side where it looks like a knit stitch, here, like this. And you will most often see that, at least in my knits, that this stitch is a bit skewed. But yeah, it's maybe there's another way of doing it, but I think it's fairly okay. And then I just, while I'm at it, I just weave in the end down the line of these knit stitches, and then I'm good to go and done with this. Italian bind off. And actually it helps a bit when you do this. Again, make sure not to pull too tightly or too tight. So this is how it looks. Please let me know if you have a better way of doing this. I kind of fiddle a bit, or I just leave it be, because once you start, using the neckband, I guess it'll be fine. So before we end this episode, let's look at the end result here. So here it is. This is how it looks like now. And as soon as this sweater gets blocked, you will see the purl lines here, and it will kind of be like this. Let's have a closer look at the corners here where we skipped the purl line here, and it kind of looks like every other purl stitch here. Not too much room, not too little room. So yeah, I'm quite happy with the result. So what's up next? Yes, in the next episode we start the series part 2, where we continue working the body with all the different options, just as we talked about in the last episode. So Roger and over from Inge's Knitting Lab. Color me happy. Bye bye.